Hi, my name is Andrew Hairston. It is my pleasure to assist you in your journey to becoming a Windows System Administrator. In this series, we'll be using Windows Server 2012 Data Center Edition. And I want to say there's no worries if you're coming from a previous version of Server 2008 and you haven't even no experience with Server 2012. Don't worry about it. We're going to go through all the basics and all the advanced options and the differences between 2008 and Windows Server 2012. So you don't have to worry about any of those things as we're going to go through all the roles and features in the platform. So we're also, like I said before, we're going to go over a lot of the basics. So anyone that's new to becoming a Windows Server Administrator is why you're here. So we're going to go over all those things. We're also going to go over the topics here that are listed on the screen here, and I'll explain those in just a moment, but I do want to introduce myself. Again, my name is Andrew Hairston. I've been in the IT industry for several years now. I would say about 25 years. I have several certifications ranging from the Microsoft certifications to security certifications such as CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, and Cisco CCNA, also Citrix certified, and ITIL, and a number of other certifications. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies. I'm currently a Director of Information Services, and so at a large firm right now. I've consulted for different organizations, insurance companies, Microsoft. I've consulted for several large government agencies as well, different cities here in North Carolina as well, including North Carolina. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go over some of the topics here that's listed on the screen. Like I said before, we're going to do just an overview of what Windows Server is from the time you press Control-Alt-Delete on your keyboard to log into your computer at your desktop. We're going to go over installing Windows, what that looks like from beginning to end. We're also going to go over Windows permissions, what those are as far as folder permissions, file permissions, when we set those permissions for users on the network. We're also going to talk about what is DHCP, and these are how the IP addresses and things get assigned on a network, making administrators such as yourself life's a little bit easier in having to do these things manually. So that's going to be our DHCP, our Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol that we're going to go over. And we're also going to go over what is DNS, Domain Naming System, and how these names get from an IP address out on the web onto the screen, such as google.com. How do those things translate, and how does that get configured on the back end out in the world? So we'll go over those things as well. So we'll also talk about what is a print server. So in a organization, we don't just have printers tied to our computers. There may be some that have just a desktop printer of some sort, but majority of us have a network printer that we print to out on the network. And also, we're going to talk about Active Directory. When you press Control-Alt-Delete, what actually happens with that user, where they're placed at in the organization from the time they press Control-Alt-Delete, and we will actually see what actually happens on the back end. And those are just a number of my certifications that I talked about earlier. And we're also going to go over some advanced topics. I don't know if I mentioned before, this is going to be a multi-part series. So there's going to be several videos in here, and I'd encourage you to watch them all. Again, whether you're experienced or just getting started, there's going to be something here for everyone. In the advanced topics, we're going to go over backup and recovery. In a more corporate environment, you're going to be using something like a backup exec, something like that, something a little better from probably Veritas, but we'll go over what Microsoft has to offer in the platform. We'll go over creating and applying group policies in the organization. These are going to be whether we're restricting objects that folks can access, so whether they can right-click on the desktop or where they can install an application, how we go about restricting those. We're going to talk about read-only domain controllers and why those are needed, and if they're needed in the different areas. And these are mainly, I can go ahead and tell you now, these are going to be in areas where you might have a remote office and all you need them to do is be able to log into a computer, but they're going to get all of their policies from the corporate network. So you would only have a read-only domain controller there, and you wouldn't have a office administrator there or the server administrator there, just someone who can unlock window accounts. So that's what that will be used for. We'll go over how that's built and how we can use that. Then we'll talk about the roles within Active Directory. There are 5 roles. They're going to be the operations masters, and we'll go over what these FSMO roles are and when we would unlock accounts and set up policies, things of that nature. But we'll dive more into that. Domain functional levels, we'll talk about those as well. Managing users and groups and computers within the OUs inside of Active Directory. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about domain replication between sites and services and trust. We're also going to talk about that. So that's going to be, if you're wondering what the trust part is, that's going to be between 2 organizations, such as a Target and a Walmart, if they needed to access each other. If there was some type of merger there happening and we needed folks to be able to access things on the different networks. So we'll go through and talk about how we go about setting those things up. Next thing is going to be UPN. That is also going to tie into our trust as well. So we'll go over that. And then our lightweight directory services. And so we'll go over that as well, talking about Linux and things. You probably won't come into contact with that too much, depending on where you're at. If you're in a small org, probably not. Larger org, you definitely will. All right. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and kick things off, and we'll start with an installation of Windows Server 2012.